What's up, guys? Welcome to the Saturday Show. The Saturday Show, of course, is where we like to go back, take a look at the week of Newswave, and see what you guys had to say to all the different topics. It's a lot of fun, and we'll see what you guys had to say today, because we had some fun stuff that we talked about throughout the week. Now, first, I'm going to start with some quick news. If you missed it, Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate that's coming out next month, August 28th. So, a little over a month now, we'll be able to play Monster Hunter on the Nintendo Switch. Of course, Double Cross, which was not released here, but only in Japan, is being localized in that fashion, Generations Ultimate. It looks like they are doing a crossover event. Now, Monster Hunter, of course, with Capcom, has been doing quite a few different crossover events, and some of them have been quite ridiculous, as we've seen like an 8-bit Mega Man outfit being put in there, so they're not taking it too seriously, and it looks like they're adding Link, or at least Breath of the Wild Link's outfit with the Champion's tunic and everything, as you're seeing here. They put a whole trailer out, and it looks like that is going to be a part of it, which makes a lot of sense, considering this has technically been out in Japan for a bit now, and it's technically a 3DS port, just obviously upscaled and better resolution, frame rate and everything. But it is still obviously a port. They have to add some stuff. It looks like they're going to be adding Breath of the Wild Link's outfit in, which makes a lot of sense, just to help with sales and just add a bit more content. I don't know if we're going to see much else announced leading up to the event, but I could see something happening afterwards, added to it, as, of course, Monster Hunter World has had stuff added to it. We even had that Final Fantasy XIV crossover event that took place and everything, so we'll see some other stuff, I'm sure. But leading up to it, just know if you pick it up on the Switch, which I do think it's going to sell pretty well in the West here in the United States, and everywhere else probably as well. Obviously in Japan it's been out for a bit, but I think it's going to sell well pretty much everywhere, because this is, I guess, quote-unquote, the hardcore, the more mainline Monster Hunter style game, and that's, of course, coming next month, August 28th. With that, guys, let's get started with the week of Newswave. On Monday, we talked about a cable for the Switch that was announced from Bionic. This cable is designed to eliminate the need for a dock, which we assume is mostly created to make travel easier. We also went over a typo within Aliens Colonial Marines that damaged the AI for enemies in-game. Cajun Bowser says, that typo, what a difference a letter makes to the AI's behavior. More info for the less programming inclined. This typo basically made that part of the AI point to a non-existent value, so that part of the algorithm fails to run. Thus, the enemy AI doesn't act aggressively to the player's position in relation to its patrol area. Cue the derpy videos you've probably seen for years now. Yeah, the way that worked is because that value made no sense, it just wasn't in effect. But of course, changing tether to tether essentially made it so that the enemy AI was then tethered to the environment, so it kind of knew what was around it and could kind of position itself in accordance to obstacles or pipes or different things it could do to then flank you, the player. Whereas before, as you've probably seen, the enemy would just run straight at you. Like, it would just run at you. And that's pretty much what happened. You would just sit there and shoot, or just wouldn't move or do anything. Now, from what I've seen, and I actually loaded it up on my computer and tried it, it's still not perfect. Like, they still don't act like you would hope they would, smart enemies, but it's way different. If you put it on like the hardest difficulty, those things will like end up behind you half the time and come around corners and stuff. It's pretty crazy. They'll be up on the, like, around the ceiling and stuff. They are way more aggressive and they are way smarter than they were before, and that makes sense because they had no idea what was around them and couldn't use it as strategy. But one letter, isn't that insane? Like, all the money they put in that, all the time, the effort, the backing from Sega, and one letter damaged that AI that badly. Tuesday, we saw Octopath Traveler do well in the UK, topping the charts for individual formats as well as overall revenue. It's important to note Crash Bandicoot is still the #1 game for units sold, and it's extremely strong in the UK. Michael Damar says, PS4 users are port begging for Octopath. I actually haven't seen that myself, technically, although I have heard a lot of people saying that people on the PS4 want it on their system, but Nintendo helped publish the game and everything. I don't think it's ever leaving Nintendo's system that I can see, unless there's some, exclusivity deal for a bit or something. I don't know. This seems like something Nintendo and Square worked on together, so I don't think it's going to leave Nintendo's system. And honestly, it fits really well on the Switch, and it's selling well enough to where I don't think Square is scrambling trying to figure out how they can release it on another system. They seem to be doing pretty well with the division that made it and the amount of money they're getting from it. What's interesting, though, I will say this, if you look, there were a lot of stories going around about the PS4 in Japan, and people in Japan actually searching their search results. And a lot of some of the bigger search results, the top search results, were PS4 Octopath Traveler. It's like people were trying to see if there was a PS4 version of it, probably because there are a lot of people who had a PS4 and not a Switch. They realized they need a Switch, so then they're going out to get a Switch. Octopath Traveler has actually been seemingly a system that's been, or a game that's been pushing Switch systems. So there you go. Again, this is why I always tell people, try to have every system if you can, get as many. Like, we had just had Black Friday, last year, and the PS4 was $150 or something, and the Xbox One was like $170 or $180 or something, and both those got gift cards. It was ridiculous at the time. So I always tell people, do what you can, get all the systems, and then don't worry about where a game lands. Just worry about what system you have to sit down and turn on to play that game. Wednesday, we went over a new trailer that showed off the No Man's Sky Next update that would help to make the game much closer to how it was originally envisioned. South Park: The Stick of Truth was also announced from Ubisoft to be heading to the Switch sometime before September. AJ says, kind of makes you wonder why they didn't release Stick of Truth first, especially considering it runs directly into Fractured But Whole. Would have been that hard to hold off for a few months and release both together? Well, hope there's a discount for people who have the sequel. Other platforms got it as a pre-order bonus for free, so I hope we get something similar, or it's a hugely discounted release. So I thought more and more about why they didn't possibly bring this over as a pre-order bonus to the Switch, and I think it's because the engine it was running on would have to have been ported. This was actually running on an Onyx engine, is what it was called, the Onyx engine. Not a lot of games were developed. I believe Dungeon Siege was developed around it and everything. So this wasn't an engine that was designed and created and ready to go for the Switch right away. And not even for the other platforms, I guess. But they did still give it away for free as a pre-order bonus to people who bought, or at least pre-order Fractured But Whole on the other systems, but not on the Switch. And now I guess they have ported the Onyx engine and everything ready to go and moved it over to the Switch. They're going to sell it probably for about $20. And it's probably going to be digital only, probably one of a physical release. I do think you're right, though. I think there should be some kind of discount, at least for people who bought the Fractured But Whole, the new South Park game from Ubisoft. See, Ubisoft probably moved over that one, the sequel, Fractured, because it was running on the Snowdrop engine, an engine that's already been ported to the Switch with things like Mario and Rabbids, right? We've seen it. So that makes sense why that would have been able to get over faster, and they probably wanted to get over as fast as possible to get it as close to its original release as they could. Remember, that only missed its original release by a couple months on the Switch, so it actually moved over pretty quick, and a lot had to do with the Snowdrop engine already having been ported, whereas the Onyx engine would probably have to have been broken down, ported, and then they could bring this over. That's probably why it missed it by so much, and I doubt they wanted to delay the newer one that had just released months ago, rather than put this one out that was just so much older, right? You're right, it does kind of run directly into it, but still, at least it's coming for people who wanted to play it, but I feel like a lot of people have probably played it by now. I mean, it released on the 360 and the PS3 forever ago. Frito says, I went back and started playing No Man's Sky again the past month, and I have to say, I've been really enjoying it. The things that have been added to it since vanilla have been really made a big difference, and this patch should be even bigger. If you love sci-fi exploration with minimal hand-holding, then give this a shot. Yeah, here's the thing. I have a feeling this game has become much better, significantly better even, since launch, but the problem we're seeing right now is the image of this game. That first impression really damaged this game, and I will say, the media, and of course everybody online that was blowing up about it, obviously did not help the situation, but there are also, I bet, a lot of people who bought it for $60 the day it came out, not even having a lot of knowledge of the game beforehand, and they probably didn't even like it. But this update, which if it was around during its release, probably would have changed everyone's initial impressions, and honestly, we probably wouldn't be in the situation we are now, where there are just a lot of people who don't want to try it just because they feel like they've been burned by this game. Sean Murray actually had his first interview in forever, I think since the launch, and he even said, I don't really like talking to media, I don't even like being in public. And I could kind of see that. Like, it's tough out there because people do take gaming very seriously. Like, there are a lot of people who get really into it to the point where they will do things like he's saying, where they'll make threats to you and all kinds of stuff. He was saying there, like death threats, bomb threats, all this stuff that is a little out there for a piece of entertainment like a video game, right? I mean, that seems obvious, but those things exist in this world, and I can understand why he wasn't interested in doing media interviews or anything, because they're probably trying to fix the game, first of all, but, you know, it was so out there with everything that he's just, And he's probably just happy to get this update out there so that the game can be altered completely, but people's perception of this game has already been pretty much carved in stone, and I don't know if it's going to change even with this update, just because they don't want to go back to it. Thursday, we took a look at the Media Create sales charts that showed Octopath Traveler selling over 110,000 copies in the first 2 days on the market. We also did a follow-up to the Aliens Colonial Marines typo story, with Gearbox now putting up a funny job listing seeking out someone to help with typo searching. Darius says, I definitely hope Octopath Traveler gets nominated for Game of the Year. I doubt it would win, but would still like to see it in the spotlight at the Game Awards. So it could get nominated, but I doubt it, just because there are so many games showing up here very, very soon. I mean, think about it. We're going to have Red Dead Redemption, Spider-Man, and then, of course, Call of Duty Battlefield. All those games are coming. A lot of games are showing up. And I think it's also going to have to fight for RPG of the Year with something like Dragon Quest technically showing up in the West as well. So Dragon Quest is going to be released everywhere at that point, right? It's going to have a hard time against that. I think it has a chance at art direction, definitely. And I think it has a shot at musical score. I think it has a shot at least those two. It could get RPG of the Year with a lot of places, but I think those are the two that it definitely has a shot over. I would love to see it in the Game of the Year discussion, at least. A nomination, you're right, would be cool at the Game Awards, just so people take a better look at it. But I think God of War is probably going to be the front runner for a lot of categories. Definitely Game of the Year. It'll be front runner for that. Absolutely. But like action game, some people might even fit it in the RPG of the year, which would be really funny. But I mean, we saw like Horizon Zero Dawn win Game of the Year with some places. So I don't know. But I would like to see Octopath at least nominated for something. Art direction and musical score, I think, are the two that it definitely can get into. Finally, on Friday, we saw a big update to Unreal Engine 4, bringing the game engine up to version 4.2, which brought a bunch of optimizations for the Switch. Middle-earth Shadow of War also removed microtransactions from the game after promising to do so earlier this year. Matt Omnihart says, let me explain why Shadow of War is really removing its microtransactions. WB Games are no longer overlooking the project, and the developers are allowed to do what they want without much repercussion. Remember MKX? There is a reason MKXL is a better version and isn't bogged down by selling characters and annoying microtransactions, WB Games. So the reason I believe that they pulled the microtransactions out, despite having them in at launch and now going back and saying that it undermines their Nemesis system, which it does, is because the game probably isn't selling as well. They're probably not making that much money on microtransactions, and the easiest way to get back in the news and have gamers that weren't interested at launch because of those microtransactions get them interested back in the game is take those microtransactions out and then make a big deal about it, right? You can say, look how new and improved this game is. We even changed up some of the aspects. You don't have to grind as much. We removed the microtransactions. We're the good guys now, so come and play our games. I can tell you now, there are a lot of people who probably are now giving this game a second look because those microtransactions are now out, and to give it a second look means you're willing to then buy it again, right? That's what would happen here. So I think mostly it comes down to sales like everything else does, and I think it just wasn't selling as well. It fell out of the spotlight that it originally had, and microtransactions are, of course, evil to a lot of gamers. So you not only become the good guys, but you also get reported on by a lot of websites, and you then probably get more money from sales from gamers who have initially wrote you off as a game that they just didn't need when it first came out because of those microtransactions. That's really the reason I think that happened, and it always comes down to money, so I have a feeling I'm probably in the ballpark of why. And guys, that's our Saturday show today. Make sure you guys like the video if you enjoyed this video. Dislike it if not. Let me know about everything we talked about today down in the comments, whether you want to talk about Octopath, possibly being in Game Awards or whatnot, the Alien Colonial Marines typo, very interested in that, or even the cable that's going to be replacing the dock apparently from Bionic. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.